Alrighty, welcome to chapter 3, or the content editing side of things. Now, I would say that this is the most important chapter if you're an editor or a marketer or a content creator, because a lot of what we did in chapter 2 was kind of to give you an understanding of the fundamentals on how a headless CMS works and how content modeling would impact and affect all of your content workflows and work moving forward. So, for a very quick recap, in case you haven't seen chapter 2, or in case you're coming back to this after a considerable amount of time, what we had done was create a bunch of blocks for things like logo reels and testimonials and images, which would then be used into models of the actual content we would be creating. And examples that we would work with are things like blog posts and case studies, which would be linked to people. And we would also create a few landing pages, such as an about page, a blog index, and a case study index, which are single instance models, meaning they can only be created once because you likely wouldn't have too many of them. And the same with the homepage. So now that we've had a good walkthrough of the entire schema system in DatoCMS, let's jump over to the content view. Now, the first thing you'd see in an empty project, or what I mean is a project without content, is these models here have absolutely no content attached to them whatsoever. However, one thing to notice is that the blocks we'd created do not show up on the sidebar view. This is because blocks are not essentially content records by themselves. Although you can query for blocks on the front end, they need to be associated within models for us as content editors to interact with them. And the content view itself looks pretty blank right now, but one thing we'll start to see as we create more and more content and have all of the entries show up here is that Dato provides some pretty impressive sort of organization and navigation features. You could search for people and posts that you create. You can set filters for yourself for sort of quick navigation, where you can filter for things based on their publish date, what the name, title, and the company would be, which are fields related to the person. You cannot filter by the content that's in the blocks associated with that model, though. So it's very important. If searching and filtering thousands of records is important to you, it's quite likely you would need a field within that model itself. You could also save filters for you and your team. So by default, all filters created will be applicable to you. You could quickly zip through, let's say, press contacts or authors. And if you want this to be used by the rest of your team, you can simply go ahead and save it for them. So this is a very quick view of what the content tab looks like. We will be repeating this video somewhere close to the very end of this chapter once we have all of the content in place, so we can look at what this looks like in a real world scenario. But for now, let's quickly get sort of into the zone, and moving into the next video, we will be creating our very first record, which would be that of a person. We'd also walk through how sort of the modular content affects these models moving forward and how you can enrich them. And finally, we'll spend some time creating some blog posts and landing pages together, and also diving into some of the more important fields that we've used when doing all of the content modeling, such as the structured text field, the SEO field. We'd also take a quick look into sort of how content records work and what information you have available to you. Would go through localizations and translations, look into how you can have multiple versions of content, which also allow you to retain previous versions and roll back if you're not happy with the current state of things. We'd also look at scheduling posts for publishing and unpublishing at a future date. And finally, we'd wrap up with kind of organizing the sidebar a little bit, looking into the filters, saving some of them, and seeing how those workflows and those options impact our day-to-day content editing in Dato. So I'll see you in the next one to work on creating our first model together.